We should never take impeachment off the table. We should never take where we see law breaking. We should never take accountability off the table.
This nonsense from like AOC that he should be impeached is just absurd. Absurd. There's no... Okay, get back to me when you've read the Constitution or get a law degree, because you sound like an absolute...
Forget everything you thought you knew, because Megyn Kelly just unleashed a move that flipped the script in jaw-dropping fashion. This wasn't a simple clapback. It was a full-scale demolition so shocking it played out like a blockbuster twist. AOC, usually the unshakable queen of the spotlight, suddenly looked like she showed up to a flamethrower battle armed with a water balloon. And the kicker, no one saw it coming. Trust me, once you hear this, you'll never look at AOC the same way again.
There is absolutely no ground to impeach the president. He 100% was within his constitutional authority and his congressionally authorized authority to do what he did on Saturday. Okay, but as for whether it's a good idea, that's a debate we should be having. And look, you know, if we could get congressional approval of the specific action, fine, I'm okay with that too. If you want to bring it to Congress, go ahead and see how that goes. I don't think it's necessary, but...
Megyn Kelly swung her spotlight straight onto AOC, and what followed looked less like a discussion and more like a heavyweight clash where one fighter stepped into the ring unarmed. Kelly didn't just expose cracks in AOC's carefully polished image. She tore through it with the reckless precision of a toddler running wild with scissors through fresh wallpaper.
Check in on AOC and see what she has to say.
Reaction on what's going on with Elon Musk and President Trump on Twitter right now.
Oh man, the girls are fighting, aren't they? I think this breakup we've been seeing a long time coming, but we'll see what the impacts are of it legislatively.
Okay. You're so cool referring to them as the girls. She's above it all, Ben. That's what she's trying to telegraph. You see, she's the adult in the room, the one out there who does a preacher accent. And she leans into her fake Latina accent. And she's the adult in the...
If you are enjoying this takedown, please hit that subscribe button. Suddenly, AOC wasn't the fiery Instagram Live queen, sipping wine while preaching to America. She was caught frozen in the unforgiving glare of Megyn Kelly's commentary, looking like someone who just discovered the Wi-Fi password had been changed without warning.
The true radical left, who's gone beyond all the identity issues. I mean, don't get me wrong. The person I'm going to show you is 100% wrapped in all of them. But like genuinely believes the Hitler fascist stuff, like is distraught because they really think Hitler just got reelected. Most of them were just pretending, but then there are the ones who genuinely believe it, like AOC.
We are about to enter a political period that will have consequences for the rest of our lives. Donald Trump has talked about turning the military on U.S. citizens that he deems his domestic political enemies.
Here's the thing about AOC, she runs on pure vibes. Her entire political playbook could be summed up as TikTok dances paired with exaggerated hand gestures. People don't flock to her for hard facts. They tune in because she can turn a 30-second soundbite into something that feels like a TED Talk spliced with a Broadway audition.
AOC has been out there on this, I don't know if it's campaign trail, I don't know what we're calling it, but this like fight the oligarchy tour with Bernie Sanders, from which, you know, venue to venue, she travels first class, sipping her champagne, you know, in the first class cabin as the losers and plebs walk by to coach. They're the ones she's really fighting for. And she's decided to ramp up her anti-Trump rhetoric in a way she's done before, but that could be deeply problematic for her if Trump actually decides to pay some attention to her.
But Megyn doesn't play in the land of vibes. She operates with surgical precision, the kind that can make even the most self-assured politician suddenly question if their entire college thesis was nothing but a running joke. And that's exactly what went down here. AOC stepped in thinking she could ride on her usual formula, sweeping statements, fiery delivery, maybe even a flashy metaphor about climate change being like an overdue credit card bill. But Megyn wasn't having it. She stripped away the performance, one exaggerated gesture at a time, until AOC resembled less a congresswoman and more a student fumbling through a book report on a book she clearly hadn't read. The genius of Megyn's approach was that she didn't come armed with cheap shots. She brought the receipts, the sharp analysis, and those cutting observations that unraveled AOC's talking points faster than a shiny dress tossed into the wrong wash cycle. And the audience? They weren't just entertained, they were floored. It's one thing to debate AOC AOC. It's another thing entirely to watch Megyn calmly dismantle her entire brand piece by piece, like disassembling IKEA furniture without the manual. And here's where it turned hilarious. AOC, who's used to being untouchable, the darling of late night skits, the heroine of progressive Twitter threads, and the self-declared slayer of capitalism rocking $300 sneakers, suddenly looked shockingly ordinary.
Report today that AOC may be getting ready to run for president, that her team is looking, and I know you've said she could potentially do it, but her team is looking at maybe Senate. Chuck Schumer is, I think, going to be 78 when he runs for re-election. That's really old, and the Democrats seem to get that now. Or she might just go for president. And at the same time, this happened today. The Republicans in the House introduced a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk. It condemns the murder and it prays.
Her image is so meticulously staged, it makes an Apple product launch look like an improv act. But Megyn didn't just reveal the cracks. She blasted them onto the big screen in 4K slow motion with Dolby surround sound. Suddenly, AOC's whole "I'm the future" persona looked less like destiny and more like a flopped Broadway audition that somehow stumbled onto C-SPAN. And it wasn't just about policies. Megyn zeroed in on the performance itself, something nobody else dared to touch. Most people waste their energy debating AOC's talking points, but Megyn stripped it down to the theater of it all. The hand-waving, the dramatic pauses, the stage bursts of emotion. It felt like ripping back the curtain on The Wizard of Oz, only to find a guy with a megaphone and a fog machine. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The reactions were pure gold. Half the audience sat frozen with jaws practically on the floor, while the other half couldn't stop laughing. Somewhere in Brooklyn, a barista was probably trying to convince a coworker that AOC is still a genius, even as she was getting steamrolled in real time. But none of that mattered. The damage was done. Megyn had proven the emperor wasn't just without clothes. She was trying to return them for store credit, and the timing, absolutely flawless. AOC had been riding high, basking in the glow of influencer politics where a snappy clapback on social media somehow counts as legislative action.
Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too. When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
Clearly saying that Donald Trump is a racist. Rapist. She also thinks he's a racist. He's all the ists. But here, she's in deep trouble because he was not found liable for rape, and George Stephanopoulos just had to pay ABC some $15 million to President Trump to settle a defamation lawsuit.
When Megyn exposed her, it became obvious that clapping back only works if you actually have something worth clapping with. Otherwise, it's just noise. Lots of motion, zero impact. Basically, political jazz hands. Here's the kicker. AOC probably thought she could spin the whole moment into her favorite narrative. Play the victim, rally the base, toss out a few hashtags. But this wasn't the usual game. Politicians get called out for their policies all the time. How often do they get exposed for their performance? That's what Megyn pulled off. She flipped AOC's biggest weapon, her talent for commanding attention, into a glaring liability. Suddenly, the same theatrics that built her brand made her look like she was trying way too hard. And in politics, nothing kills faster than looking like the desperate try-hard in the room. By the end, Megyn had accomplished what nobody else had managed before. She didn't just win an argument, she rewired the way people see AOC. Because once you've been shown that the voice of the people is basically auditioning for Broadway every time she steps up to the mic, you can't unsee it. It's like finding out your favorite action hero relied on a stunt double the entire time.
There's AOC, who said the following.
And beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, far from the working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution.
Then she voted no. She refused to join in the resolution. Consequences to her politically for doing that?
I would love to have her run for president of the Democratic side. It's a contrast, right? What you see is what you get. If that's what you think can lead this country, is that where your values are? Is that what you think will continue to promote American freedom and liberty?
And here's the kicker. This wasn't even Megyn at full power. This was Megyn on a Tuesday, sipping her coffee, casually dismantling a politician like it was nothing more than a morning warm-up. Imagine what happens when she actually locks her sights fully on AOC. That's not just exposure. That's political demolition delivered with a smile. Because once Megyn exposes you like this, the internet never lets it die. Memes start flooding timelines. Late-night comedians make shaky jokes. And somewhere a frantic team of interns is desperately trying to scrub the clips from trending feeds. Spoiler, it never works. At this point, AOC's smartest option might be to embrace the theater completely. Why not break into full-blown musical numbers on the house floor, jazz hands and all? At least then, people might laugh with her instead of at her. But after Megyn's takedown, the illusion cracked wide open. The performance was exposed. And for the first time, people began asking themselves, wait, was this always just a show? The wildest part? How fast the entire tone shifted once Megyn shoved AOC under the microscope. Moments earlier, the Congresswoman was untouchable, a kind of digital superhero who could do no wrong in the eyes of her fans.
And the reason this is relevant is because a Congresswoman, who you may know as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has been telling us for years that she is from the Bronx. And recently, she had a fight with President Trump over tweet, text, truth, whatever. And she played tough and said, oh, don't you mess with me. I'm a Bronx girl, and we eat Queens boys for breakfast, because that's where Trump was raised, in the Queens. And respectfully, AOC. Well, that's real cute, except she only lived in the Bronx until she was age 5.
She could botch a policy explanation, mash metaphors until they sounded like rejected fortune cookie lines, or toss out a half-baked analogy about billionaires devouring planets, and the crowd would still cheer like she'd just taken a bow on the Hamilton stage. But Megyn didn't sit back and clap politely. She jabbed the balloon, and all the air whooshed out in one long, humiliating squeak. That's the thing about performance politics. It only works if the audience keeps buying into the illusion, and Megyn, with ruthless precision, yanked the wires into plain view. Picture AOC stepping into one of her trademark speeches. The wide eyes, the dramatic pauses, the hand slicing the air like she's conducting an invisible orchestra. Usually people eat that up, but this time, with Megyn exposing the formula, every flourish looked rehearsed, almost mechanical. It was like watching a magician repeat the same card trick once you already know where the ace is hidden. Impressive the first time, laughably predictable by the 10th, and you could almost feel AOC realizing it in real time. Her entire brand depends on control, controlling the narrative, the vibe, and the way every gesture lands with her audience.
The rest of her childhood, 1 through 12th grade, in Yorktown Heights, which is Westchester. And by any measure, it is richer, nicer, and more white collar than the Bronx, with all due respect to my friends in the Bronx. She's pretending to be a Bronx girl because she wants this to be part of her origin story, the same way as she wants now to be called Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Once Megyn dismantled that control, the whole act started to wobble. Suddenly, AOC didn't look like the bold revolutionary leader of a new generation. She looked like an exhausted drama student forgetting lines mid-performance. Megyn calmly dissected her playbook, one exaggerated gesture at a time. And that actually made it worse, because AOC thrives on battling villains. She needs the opposition to look like a cartoon bad guy. It fuels her brand. But what happens when the opposition just stands there smiling, casually pointing out that the emperor is doing jazz hands in an empty room? There's no fiery showdown. There's just silence, and the deafening hiss of credibility leaking away. AOC's loyalists rushed in to defend her. Predictably, Twitter exploded with threads longer than medical textbooks, each one bending over backwards to insist she wasn't actually exposed, that Megyn was simply being cruel, and that none of it mattered in the bigger picture. But here's the irony. The harder they tried to defend her, the more the cracks showed. Because if it takes a 42-part dissertation to explain why someone didn't just get humiliated, guess what? They got humiliated.
Everyone knew her as Sandy Cortez when she was growing up, and her lies are coming to the fore. So, among other things, Benny Johnson, who's hilarious, and he's a great Twitter follow and has a great show, went to Yorktown Heights just to take a look and to talk to some folks there about AOC and what Yorktown is like and so on. And now some of her schoolmates, separate and apart from Benny, are weighing in on her claims.
Meanwhile, Megyn sat back and let the chaos run its course, probably sipping coffee like a queen surveying her battlefield. That's the power of exposure done right. You don't even need to strike again. The first blow echoes on its own. Clips keep replaying, memes keep spreading, and every conversation drags AOC's performance back into the spotlight. And with each replay, it looks worse than before. It's almost poetic, like a gymnast nailing a flawless triple flip, only to faceplant while waving to the crowd. Nobody remembers the flips after that. They remember the faceplant. The ripple effect in the media was almost funnier. Outlets that usually leap to AOC's defense suddenly started whispering, well, maybe she does lean a little too much on theatrics. Oh, now they notice. Years of overacting and Instagram sermons. And it took Megyn drawing a giant neon arrow for them to finally admit it. The timing couldn't have been better. It was like watching a room full of people politely pretend to enjoy a bad movie until one person says, wait, this is awful, and instantly everyone nods along.
Fourth place, not necessarily fourth place. This is just, I'm going to start with as the fourth possibility, but I've got 4 total and you'll decide what order they go in. I'm going to kick it off with AOC. Okay. Her real name is Sandy Ocasio. This is what she went by her entire life, Sandy Ocasio. And only when she decided to run for office did she decide to suddenly become Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and lean into her Puerto Rican history, where her mother was born in Puerto Rico, but her father was born in New York City. And she decided to tell us sob stories about how she's from a poor family and she was living, paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, she was raised in a Tony part of Westchester called Yorktown Heights.
The memes, of course, are where the real demolition happens. The internet doesn't bother with nuance. It craves punchlines. And Megyn handed them a buffet. Clips of AOC's exaggerated hand waves now play over circus music. Her dramatic pauses loop endlessly into cringe-worthy silences. Screenshots freeze her mid-expression with captions like, Oscar-worthy performance, 0 policy details. Once the internet gets you like that, credibility isn't just bruised, it's roasted, gift-wrapped, and archived forever. Every sweeping gesture looks faker. Every pause feels rehearsed. Every passionate plea sounds less like politics and more like an audition monologue. And now here we are. AOC's image cracked wide open. Her supporters scrambling to tape it back together. The media sheepishly admitting what they always knew. And Megyn standing there like the one who reminded everyone the emperor wasn't just unclothed. He was doing jazz hands. And the best part, this wasn't even a battle. There was no clash of titans, no thunderous applause, no dramatic gasp, just the uncomfortable realization that nobody believes the act anymore. The wires are showing, the props are obvious, and the person on stage looks like they're trying far too hard. That's the demolition nobody else ever pulled off, until now.